Every legend hits a crossroads where their entire legacy hangs in the balance, facing the ultimate test. It isn't an enemy across the net or a cruel twist of fate that threatens them, but a single, earth-shattering choice that makes the world wonder. Is the glory era over? For Carlos Alcaraz, that reckoning arrived, yet the masses failed to grasp just how precarious the situation truly became. A shockwave rattled the sport on December 17, 2025, right as the tour was settling into its holiday hibernation. While rivals shared festive vacation snaps and upcoming brackets quietly circulated online, the atmosphere was deceptively calm. The community was bracing for 2026 when, without warning, Alcaraz took to Instagram and detonated a digital grenade that absolutely no one anticipated. Penning these words is the hardest thing I have ever had to do. Following 7 incredible years, Wani and I are parting ways professionally. Thank you for turning my boyhood fantasies into truth. You stood by me from my childhood days, guiding me through an unforgettable odyssey both inside the arena and out. I have cherished every single stride we took side by side. In a heartbeat, one of the era's most iconic duos dissolved into memory. Juan Carlos Ferrero, the French Open king and former top-ranked titan who mentored Alcaraz since the prodigy was merely 15, was suddenly out of the picture. There was no heads-up, no slow fade, just a midweek status update that sent the entire sport into a tailspin. The fallout was instant shock, sorrow, and genuine alarm rippled through the fanbase because this was far more than a standard staffing change. Ferrero was not a hired gun brought in to fix a backhand or tweak a serve. He was the master builder, the visionary who took a rough diamond from Murcia and polished him into a 6-time major winner and the ruler of the rankings. They constructed an empire stone by stone, trophy by trophy, yet weeks before the Australian Open, the final jewel missing from his crown, it crumbled. The very tournament needed to seal his legendary career Grand Slam status. He was marching into Melbourne stripped of the general who had commanded every previous major victory, sparking questions far deeper than mere curiosity. The real terror lay in the unknown future and the chaotic reality buried beneath the headlines. Initially, both camps issued diplomatic, affectionate press releases, mimicking the tone of two friends navigating a painful breakup with grace. Yet, Ferrero's own upload barely concealed the agony, beginning with, "This is a heavy day, where finding the proper language feels impossible." Farewells are agonizing, particularly when our history runs this deep. We toiled, evolved, and forged memories that will never fade. Then came the dagger, a solitary phrase revealing his true heartbreak. "I truly desired to keep going." Those are not the words of someone who walked away. That is the sound of a man dismissed, fighting to maintain his dignity. As the days turned to weeks, the pristine facade began to crack, revealing the ugly details. In a raw interview with Marca right before the holidays, Ferrero sketched a scenario far more tangled than the initial polite announcement suggested. Post-season renewal talks had occurred, but the dialogue soured with alarming speed. While an extension felt inevitable, Ferrero admitted, "Naturally, as the season concludes, we must review the technicalities of the agreement." However, looking toward the future, "We hit an impasse on specific terms," he noted, before dropping a bombshell that highlighted the ruthlessness of the split. He claimed the offer landed on his desk on Saturday, December 13th, accompanied by a strict ultimatum. "Sign by Monday, or walk. 48 hours. Take it or leave it." After 7 years of blood, sweat, hotel rooms, and managing a superstar ego, he was given a mere weekend to determine his fate. "Bargaining always involves a tug-of-war," he explained. "His team protects his interests, and I must protect mine. Maybe a face-to-face conversation could have saved us, but that meeting never happened, so we pulled the plug." He swiftly silenced rumors suggesting greed was the catalyst, claiming the paycheck wasn't the deal-breaker. Instead, insiders pointed fingers at friction between the coach and the player's father, Carlos Sr., regarding the strategic path of the young phenomenon, specifically clashing over training locations, the family's encroaching influence on business matters, and fundamental disputes on operational management. A more profound narrative also lurked beneath the surface, one that Spanish media began to unravel. Alcaraz starred in a Netflix special titled My Way, a moniker that proved to be a manifesto rather than just a marketing slogan. His evolving mindset prioritized personal joy and authentic expression, insisting on autonomy. This likely chafed a disciplinarian like Ferrero, whose stoic, almost Nordic intensity seemed alien amidst the passionate backdrop of Spanish sport. Looking back, the writing was on the wall long before the storm broke. Let's be clear, This wasn't a handshake and a smile. It was a fracture. One camp wanted to maintain the status quo. The other demanded evolution. And the casualty was the man Alcaraz had practically worshipped as family. That context turns the next chapter into a psychological thriller. The uncertainty. To really grasp the stakes, you have to understand the strange, intimate ecosystem of tennis coaching. It is a beast unlike any other. In football, you have a manager, assistants, conditioning experts, video gurus, shrinking violets, a massive machine designed to support the talent. If one cog fails, the wheel keeps turning. Even in golf, a player has a caddy and a mental coach to lean on. But in tennis, the head coach is the alpha and omega. They are the solitary figure in the box, dissecting your every twitch. The eyes you search for when the wheels start to wobble. The voice that talks you off the ledge after a gut-wrenching loss, reminding you that one bad day doesn't define your existence. They build the blueprint, decode the enemy, and manage the most volatile variable of all, your mind, your confidence, your sanity on the lonely tour. Ferrero had been that rock for Carlos since the kid was 15. Juan Carlos is like a second father. He could have his pick of champions, yet he chose me. Alcaraz said that right before the split. It wasn't just professional respect, it was a lifeline. A deep, vital emotional attachment. And suddenly, on the brink of the Australian Open, the one major he needed to become the youngest career Grand Slam winner ever, that lifeline was cut. The architect was gone. Naturally, the doubt was deafening. Even experts like Bino warned that a massive question mark hung over his head. It wasn't about his forehand. It was about the empty chair in the box. Who held the master plan? Who would Carlos look to when Djokovic turned into a brick wall and the match started slipping away? Who would be the steady hand? The answer was Samuel Lopez, 55 years old, a veteran from Alicante who'd been a background figure since December 2024, a reliable, experienced operator. He had guided Pablo Carreño Busta to the top 10 over 9 years, but staring down a legend in a Grand Slam final? That is a different universe. The whispers were everywhere. Can the kid function without Ferrero? Is he tough enough to face Melbourne alone? Would the cracks show when the pressure cooked him? That was the burning question of the 2026 season. The answer came fast, and it was brutal. The Australian Open kicked off in late January, and Alcaraz wasn't just surviving, he was evolving. He looked looser, dangerous. He steamrolled through the early rounds without dropping a single set. A massive statement, considering Melbourne Park had historically been the place where his magic tended to fade. He dismantled Alex de Minaur in the quarters despite a hostile crowd, then brushed aside Alexander Zverev in the semis without blinking. Then came the final boss. Novak Djokovic, 38. The immovable object, the most terrifying opponent in the sport, not just for his skill, but for the psychological warfare he wages. A final against Novak isn't a match, it is a test of your soul. And Alcaraz passed. He claimed the title, becoming the youngest man in history to complete the slam set at just 22 years and 272 days. He did it without Juan Carlos Ferrero watching his back. But he was just getting started. The next move proved just how much he had matured. He skipped Rotterdam, where he was the defending champ, to prioritize recovery after the Australian Marathon. No ego, no chasing rankings, just cold, smart strategy. He recharged in Murcia, then touched down in Doha for the Qatar ExxonMobil Open just days before the start. Fresh, focused. What followed was a clinical execution. He didn't just win, he erased people. He dismantled the field. In 3 of his 5 matches, nobody broke his serve even once. The final against Arthur Fils? Over in 60 minutes. 6-2, 6-1. The fastest kill of his professional life. A scoreline so lopsided you have to double-check it. 12 matches in 2026. 12 wins. Perfection. The best start to a season he has ever had. 2 trophies, Melbourne and Doha, already in the bank. He has strangled the competition to open up a lead of more than 3,000 points over Jannik Sinner. The whispers of doubt? Gone. Completely obliterated. But let's talk about the silent killer in his arsenal. The weapon hiding in plain sight, buried beneath the flashy headlines, demanding its own spotlight. For years, the critics and armchair experts all pointed to the same chink in Alcaraz's armor, his service game. His return game was never in question. It has always been absolute platinum tier, easily one of the most dangerous on the ATP circuit. But the serve? It was just sturdy. Not a get-out-of-jail-free card when the pressure cooker turned up. Back in 2025, He was sitting at number 6 for service games won, clocking in at 87.6%. Good, sure, but not God tier. Fast forward to 2026, and that figure has skyrocketed to 90.8%. And if you scrub that semi-final war against Rublev in Doha where he got broken 4 times in a brutal slog, the real number hits 92.6%. We are talking stratospheric levels now. But the real magic? It is happening on the second serve. Let me give you some perspective. If you win 56% of second serve points over a career, you are walking among giants. Rafael Nadal is the all-time leader at 57.1%. Roger Federer sits at 56.8%. Carlos Alcaraz's career average? 56% flat. He was already elite. But in 2026, he is winning a staggering 59.4%. That vaults him right over Nadal. It puts him well clear of Federer through just 12 matches. Sure, the sample size is tiny, the season is fresh. But this isn't just a lucky streak. These are fundamental architectural changes to the one area rivals used to target. And the fact that this evolution is happening in his first full season with a new team? No accident. It reveals the psyche of a champion who has stopped looking for approval. But the scariest part of Alcaraz's 2026 campaign isn't the scoreboard, it is his rhetoric. Fresh off conquering the Qatar Open, staring down a perfect 12-0 record with 2 titles already bagged, he grabbed the mic and dropped a line that should send shivers down the spine of every guy in the locker room. He basically said, "Success isn't about the hardware." Then, without anyone asking, he pivoted to how much better he could get. There's always another level. I look in the mirror and see flaws. I'm grinding in practice to patch those holes. Keep in mind this kid is 22 years old. He has 7 majors. He hasn't lost a match in 2026, having just swept the Australian Open and Qatar back-to-back, barely losing a game in the finals. Yet, his dominant thought isn't, "I'm the king," it is, "I have work to do." He sees a gap between his current level and his potential. Before a ball was even hit in Doha, a reporter asked him how he would define a successful week. His response was a total giveaway. We set specific goals, but we aren't talking about the score. We aren't talking about the trophy. It is about the craft. It is about the evolution, growing up. Process over outcome coming from the guy delivering the best outcomes on earth. It is almost disturbing. It proves Alcaraz isn't just riding a wave of raw talent. He is engineering a dynasty on purpose. He is the type who can't be satisfied, because the moment he touches the bar, he raises it higher. That is the alchemy that turns greatness into legend. And again, he is only 22. But let's look at the macro picture for the sport. We need to zoom out and really digest the history unfolding in front of us. In the daily grind of match highlights, it is easy to become numb to the sheer scale of this dominance. In just the last 24 months, Carlos Alcaraz has bagged 5 Grand Slams, 4 Masters 1000s, and 4 ATP 500 titles. In 2025, he dethroned Sinner to finish year-end number 1, collecting 8 tour-level trophies along the way. Now, in 2026, the debate has shifted from greatest of his generation to greatest of all time, depending on how the next 10 years play out. But here is the kicker. The most perilous time for a superstar is usually when they split from their original mentor. When the architect leaves, the building usually wobbles, causing players to scramble for their balance, to struggle with an identity crisis. Alcaraz? He went the other way. He hit the gas. The numbers are sharper. The trophies are piling up faster. The gap in that Doha final suggests he isn't just beating these guys. He is operating in a different stratosphere. He has mastered his calendar with surgical precision, showing up fresh instead of limping in on empty, something that might have been a sticking point with Ferrero back in the day. And through this metamorphosis, he has finally put the ultimate argument to bed. Carlos Alcaraz is not a product manufactured by Juan Carlos Ferrero. He is his own masterpiece. Ferrero molded him, sculpted his game, and steered him through the crucible of his most critical developmental years. Yet, the raw genius, the burning intensity, and the instinct to rise when the stakes are highest, that is pure Carlos Alcaraz. Juan Carlos Ferrero remains a titan among mentors. The transformation he achieved with this prodigy is nothing short of legendary and demands full respect. However, the masterpiece eventually outgrew the artist who created it, in a way that serves as the ultimate tribute to both men. So where do we go from here? The tour moves to the California desert for Indian Wells, the BNP Paribas Open, a fortress where he reigned supreme in 2023 and 2024. It is his kingdom. If he claims the trophy again, and honestly, you would be crazy to bet against him right now. He will secure a hat trick of titles this season and push his undefeated streak to somewhere around 17-0 or 18-0. After the desert comes Miami, the clay courts, Wimbledon, and finally, New York. A single, burning question now hangs over every one of those arenas. Just how deep does this rabbit hole go? Could 2026 be the year Alcaraz chases down the mythical calendar Grand Slam? Melbourne is already in the bag. The clay of Paris and the grass of London are his playgrounds, while the U.S. Open is where his legend truly began in 2022. Flushing Meadows is practically his living room. No man has captured the calendar Grand Slam in modern tennis history. Since Steffi Graf's Golden Slam in 1988, the men's game has seen nothing like it. Not from Federer, not from Nadal, not even from Djokovic. Yet here we are in February 2026, staring at a 12-0 record, 2 trophies, and the most explosive start to a season he has ever produced. Fueled by a champion who has it all but trains like he has everything to prove. Watching him now, you have to ask yourself the ultimate question. Rewind a few months, and the script for 2026 was full of plot holes. Parting ways with Ferrero sparked serious doubts, completely valid ones that any sane observer would have raised. Can a superstar operate at the peak without the mentor who programmed his every move? Does the building crumble when the architect leaves? Well, the verdict is in. He conquers Australia. He flies home. He dominates the Qatar Open, barely letting anyone touch his serve. He sits at 12 victories and 0 defeats, unleashing a service game that is statistically deadlier than ever before. His mental game has hardened, and his court presence is terrifying enough to have rivals sweating over the arrival of March. That dark cloud of uncertainty hovering over his season has been blown away. He didn't silence the critics with a whisper or a cautious comeback. He roared his answer in Melbourne and shouted it again in Doha. The statement was made with a 6-2, 6-1 demolition job in a 50-minute final, looking like an alien playing amongst mortals. Carlos didn't just endure the departure of his father figure, he blossomed in the void. If that reality doesn't send a shiver down the spine of the locker room, they aren't paying attention. Look, if you stuck around until the very last second of this video, I seriously appreciate you. Narratives like this need room to breathe. You can't jam this kind of drama into a quick highlight clip, so I wanted to do it justice. If you got a kick out of this, hit the comments and tell me, what is your take on Alcaraz's run in 2026? Is the full slam actually within reach, or are we dreaming too big? Let me know below. I check every single response. Also, if you haven't smashed that subscribe button, get on it. We have plenty more deep dives on the way. Catch you in the next one.